As our cable competitors are devoting hours of coverage today to the president's tweet about Stormy Daniels, voters, I think, are just tuning them out. Why? Because the voters are smarter than the media think they are, as usual. Americans outside the leftist activist bubble are focused on issues that actually affect their daily lives. Pocketbook issues. Like the stock market jumped 500 points today. Tech stocks way up. That's good for your 401k. And the Labor Department reported that there are 7 million job openings currently in the United States. And our industrial output is surging. All fantastic news. But Americans also see some trouble on the horizon as well. Lawlessness at the border that no advanced society should tolerate. Now we have another mass of people, as many as 4,000, I'm told, another so-called migrant caravan making its way from Honduras to the United States. And President Trump has had just about enough.
We have the dumbest immigration laws in the world. The world laughs at us, but we're getting them changed. We need some more Republicans. We need some votes.
I'll say, and for many years, voters have been telling politicians, enforce the border and close immigration loopholes. In fact, even on the issue of legal immigration, and a lot of people don't know this, the country is not clamoring for big increases. Check this out. Only 28% of Americans want immigration levels increased. 29% of Americans want them decreased, and a plurality, as you see, want them just to remain the same. Of course, most politicians continue to just ignore the wishes of the people. So what they do is they continue to expand things like distant relative chain migration. They refuse to allocate money for the building of the entire wall at the southern border. And they refuse to pass legislation to allow for immediate border turnbacks of anyone crossing the border illegally. And of course, Democrats are just against all tightening of the current ridiculous rules for asylum. Donald Trump won the presidency in large part because he wouldn't accept the status quo on immigration. And as usual, he was 5 steps ahead of most every Republican congressman on the issue. In July, Gallup found that Americans identified immigration as the top issue for them going into the midterms. Last month, it was the second most important issue, tied with just general economic problems. Democrats thought, I think, that a focus on the difficult issue of child separation, a practice that the administration has now ended, that would turn out voters and get Democrats or Latino voters really excited to get out there. But I don't think it's working for them. And remember, back in 2016, the Latino voter turnout rate didn't increase, despite Trump's push for the wall and a lot of stronger immigration enforcement. And of course, Hispanic Americans are themselves disproportionately affected by the impact of illegal immigration in their neighborhoods, in their communities, and ditto for Black Americans. The good news is that as the second caravan drama unfolds, it turns out that some establishment Republicans are waking up to the wisdom of Trump.
It makes the immigration debate more on Trump's terms. You know, there is no right to come to America. You know, we can have rules about who comes. And where's Mexico? Mexico needs to help us because last time I checked, you just can't walk from Guatemala to here without going through Mexico.
Oh, yeah. And today the president warned the president of Honduras, if the large caravan of people heading to the U.S. is not stopped and brought back to Honduras, he's going to cut off foreign aid. Vice President Pence had separately warned the presidents of Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador to tell their people, do not make the dangerous trek to America, saying the U.S. will not tolerate this blatant disregard for our border and sovereignty. By the way, Honduras is on track to receive $65.7 million in foreign aid from the U.S. in the upcoming fiscal year 2019. But back to the midterms. As frustrated as so many of us are with the Republicans and what they failed to do at the border, well, the cause may be totally lost if the open borders Democrats take the House. While the president is focused on important things like abolishing the illegal immigrant gang, MS-13, Democrats want to abolish ICE.
We need to rebuild our immigration system from top to bottom, starting by replacing ICE with something that reflects
replace it, and we can replace it with a humane agency that is directed towards safe passage instead of the direction of criminalization.
Safe passage. Everybody come on in. And Warren and Ocasio-Cortez are not alone, of course. There are a lot more like them that believe the same thing. Again, the choice could not be clearer for the midterm voters. There's so much on the line for America. Will Trump get the funding for his wall? Will the mass migration from other poor countries in Central America be stopped at all, ever? Will travesties such as birthright citizenship finally be ended? Will we mandate E-Verify to penalize businesses who game the system to keep American wages low? Of this, my friends, you can be sure. Your views on immigration will have zero impact and zero influence on a House dominated by Democrats who want to replace you, the American voters, with newly amnestied citizens and an ever-increasing number of chain migrants. If Republicans choose to unite, however, behind the president's immigration policy, the way they just did in the Kavanaugh fight, this will stoke voter enthusiasm even further ahead of the all-too-important midterm election. And that's the angle. All right, joining us now with reaction here in studio with me, Mark Krikorian is the Executive Director of the Center for Immigration Studies. Tom Homan, former Acting Director of ICE, and Jose Aristimuño is a Democratic strategist and former DNC Deputy Press Secretary. All right, fellas, just a moment ago, the president, anticipating the angle, I'm sure, tweeted about this very issue saying, "We have today informed the countries of Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador that if they allow their citizens or others to journey through their borders and up to the United States with the intention of entering our country illegally, all payments made to them will stop." In other words, end. Tom Homan, you're the one with the most experience in this on this issue. Is the president right here in his approach?
Yeah, I think he needs to throw down the gauntlet. I mean, we give these countries a lot of aid, but I think that the other issue that the president needs to be aware of is that the remittances run into the billions of dollars. So these countries get billions of dollars a year from their citizens who live in this country illegally. That sends money back to those countries, and that amounts to billions. So that's another thing we need to address. But when it comes to this caravan, as I said last night, the president needs to work with Mexico. Mexico needs to stop them on their southern border, not issue them transit visas, and turn them around right there on the southern border so they don't get to the United States.
Jose, U.S. foreign aid to Honduras, it's not a lot compared to what we give some other countries, but it's not chump change either. I'll put up the graphic. 2017, we gave them $144 million, natural disaster that year. 2018, $52 million. This year, $65 million projected. Guatemala, they're trying to stop the caravan from coming through to Guatemala. Hasn't worked so far. 2017, $229 million. Again, natural disaster. 2018, 76. 2019, $69 million projected. What about our sovereign right to protect our borders from what amounts to an organized effort to crush or rush the border right before the midterm elections?
Well, first and foremost, and with all respect to Tom, let me just say that it makes no sense for the President of the United States to threaten Honduras and say, hey, I'm not going to give you this money if you let these people go through Guatemala, Mexico, what have you. It makes no sense. Less money for Honduras, less money for Central America. What's going to happen? More crime in those countries, and the caravans are just going to get bigger. It makes no sense. I don't think the President thought this through, and this happens almost every day, every time he tweets. He should stop tweeting altogether. But to your point, Laura, these people under international law and under U.S. law have the legality to go to our border and seek asylum. They can do this, and they should do this, because, as we know, every single year, a percentage of those people can actually stay in this country. These are people who are fleeing horrible, horrible conditions.
How many other countries exist on the earth where people would like to flee generally a corrupt government? Because in Honduras and Guatemala, they've had corruption,
sure.
Corrupción, mucho corrupción, throughout the entire region for
sure.
so many years. So if that really is the standard, and that seems to be what the standard is today, de facto, then we better prepare. I mean, this is going to be a wholesale migration from Venezuela, where we've seen 2 million people flee. Ultimately, they can get from Venezuela up through Central America, up through Mexico to the United States. And you would be okay with that?
They should have a right to do so. I'm not saying every single. I'm not saying every single. Let me be clear. I'm not for open borders. I don't think every single migrant.
To this,
I am not saying every migrant who crosses the border should have a legality to do this, but they should have a right to at least be heard. That's what I'm saying.
Well, we don't have the facilities to hear millions and millions of people, which, if that is the standard, will ultimately have But Mark Krikorian, you know, we are a giving country. We're a compassionate country. We do help people in need all across the globe. And on CNN today, this reporter who's Leila Santiago, who's covering the migration, she's very pro-migrant, but nevertheless, she made this point following on what Jose said.
Many of the programs that this money pays for, those programs are to try to prevent violence, to try to help people with poverty. So if that aid is taken away, the people who run those programs will tell you you'll likely see more immigration. You'll likely see larger numbers at the U.S. border.
Mark.
There are plenty of ways we can put pressure on these countries. I mean, really, what's the point to being a superpower if you can't try to get a tiny little country in your backyard to do what you want? And honestly, the most important target of this kind of pressure is actually not Central American countries, it's Mexico, because they're all passing through Mexico. Mexico is a much more functional state. It's wealthier, its government works better, which is why Mexico really is responding, I think, to the pressure, because I just saw on the way over here, they're sending large numbers of federal police, federales, down to southern Mexico to stop these people from getting over, and that's the key before they ever get here.
Our relationship with Mexico with the incoming president, Almo, is actually, Obrador, is actually going to improve. This deal with the new NAFTA, U.S.-Mexico-Canadian trade agreement, it's actually a good new start. I don't think they want to muck that up now. Tom Homan, and this is right up your alley, August 2017, the border arrests between the ports of entry, just in the month of August 2017, were 22,293. Let's put up the graphic. August 2018, 37,544. Now, these are people crossing between the ports of entry. That's a 68% increase, Tom, from year to year, in a month, monthly tab, year to year.
And why would they stop? I mean, you got the Ninth Circuit says we can't detain families more than 20 days. We got a judge saying you can't separate. Then we got the judge, the families that were separated, we can't deport. We can't detain enough of them because Congress has not funded ICE properly. ICE asked for 21,000, but they funded 40,000. And to get back to my friend here, as far as they have a right to claim asylum, people who leave Honduras have passed through Guatemala and Mexico. They are no longer in fear of persecution in that country. So this isn't about escaping fear and persecution, because they can make an asylum claim in Mexico. This is about getting to the United States. And 80% of those people that claim fear lose their cases in the immigration court. They're taking advantage of low thresholds in the system. They're taking advantage of this. 80%. That's just a fact. Stone cold
Under Obama,
fact.
they were turned back to 80%.
80% lose their case.
How would they know? But Tom, how would they know if they don't get to our border and they actually get to be heard? How would they know?
Again, they passed through 2 other countries before they got to the United States. They can, many claim asylum in Mexico. To escape fear and persecution in Honduras,
Mexico is as dangerous as Honduras and Guatemala.
It's not on international law. It does not count as a country where you can't claim asylum. I know that's a fact, and Mexico might want to change that, but Mexico is a place where you are allowed, and they have actually accepted asylum requests by some of the migrants, not that many. I want to talk a little bit about who's funding the caravan. There's a question in the Honduran, Honduran foreign ministry, corruption everywhere there. But they identified today, a foreign ministry spokesman cited political sectors as culpable, unidentified political influences. Someone is funding these caravans. There's no way that these people who are the poorest of the poor can afford, what is it, $4,000 to $7,000, Tom, per migrant, per crossing, with the cartels you got to pay, with the human traffickers sometimes are involved in getting the payoffs. Who's paying for this? Someone's paying for this, or they're selling themselves or their family members into some type of slavery for some period of time to pay for this. So doesn't that raise some questions here?
I think it raises a question. I think the more important thing we need to educate American people on is by not controlling our borders, by not controlling this caravan, because this caravan comes across, ICE isn't funded right, because all the loopholes that Congress refused to fix, they're going to be released, which is going to entice more people to come. But the money, we're bankrolling the very criminal organizations that smuggle these people are the same organizations that smuggle drugs, smuggle guns, and have killed Border Patrol agents. So this
Congress has to act. Though Congress has got to act. The president, I think, is doing about as much as he can here. It puts the migrants' lives in danger, puts children's lives in danger, and it helps the cartels become more and more powerful. Jose, I want to play for you. This is Rafael Hernandez, who's a Honduran immigrant. He's one of the members of the caravan. Now, this is in Spanish, but you can read the subtitles about why he's moving with this massive fellow Hondurans. Let's watch.
El motivo de participar en esa caminata es llevar un sueño americano, ¿verdad? Para superarlo, ¿verdad? Una vez más para nuestros hijos, ¿verdad? La familia. Porque el hecho de emigrar, como venimos, es motivo a una escasez que tenemos demasiada en el país, ¿verdad?
Okay, that I understand that. Pretty much a lot of people want to come to the United States, but he's not citing a credible fear of persecution. He basically just wants to come to America because probably a lot of his family members are already there, friends. They've told him, "We come here and I'll get you a job." That's not a potential asylee.
And I agree with you 100%. So we should do a better job as a government to amplify and to communicate to other countries to know, hey, it's not easy to get asylum. You can come and you can try, but most folks are not going to get it. So
Why not stop asylum applications at the ports of
crazy.
entry? Well, ports of entry makes it more dangerous, and they have to make that 1,000-mile trek. Why not apply from their home country? Mark.
They don't have that luxury.
Yeah, see, the thing is, you're saying that they're not going to get asylum. And most of them, even under Obama, 80% of people who went through were denied. But the point is, they're already in the United States. They've been working maybe for several years already while their case has been going on. And when they're finally denied at the end, they just don't show up. And nobody's looking for them. So the whole point is to get in.
They get here, and then it's a get out of Guatemala or Honduras free card, correct? You get to stay. You're never going to be deported unless maybe you commit a violent crime, and even then sometimes you can come back. And so they know they're going to be able to stay.
No, less than 5% of family units who have lost their case in immigration court have been removed. And the gentleman you saw being interviewed, the reason he didn't use the asylum claim, because he hasn't been coached by the criminal organization of Mexico. Once he gets to Mexico, believe me, he'll be trained exactly what to say to CIS to pass that first interview.
Everyone seems to say the exact same lines. Like you start looking at the lines, they're all the same lines. My friends, thank you so much. And for more